What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Ultra League, and the team we're taking a look at today is Empoleon, Gliscor, and Super GOURGEIST. Now, Super is the XXL form of the GOURGEIST, and if you aren't familiar with GOURGEIST, or GOURGEIST, however you want to pronounce it, the size actually does matter. It does actually take into account your stat product depending on your size. So you do want to go for the larger versions that you can. The Super is actually the best for the Ultra League, I believe, so that's what we're running today. I've paired it up with an Empoleon and a Gliscor. Both of those, the GOURGEIST and the Gliscor, cover Empoleon's weaknesses of both ground, fighting, and electric really well by resisting all three of those each, but having different typings. You do have a dual weakness to ice in the back, but that's why you have Empoleon on the lead. So without further ado, let's hop into these battles. Alright, heading into the first match, we've got Empoleon into Guzzlord, and this is a fantastic lead for the Empoleon. Of course, Dragon Tails are resisted in this matchup, and we have neutral coverage with both Metal Sound and Drill Peck. So I will just let my opponent connect with a Crunch, actually. The opponent not opting for Brutal Swing and Dragon Claw or Sludge Bomb, instead going for Crunch. So very interesting. Let's see what the opponent's other charge move is. That said, I'm going to actually go for a Catch and a Pivot into my Gliscor, because I want to check for that Ice type in the back in case my opponent is running it, and out comes a Typhlosion. Now Typhlosion actually just going to settle for a Thunder Punch here, and that is fine by me because Thunder Punch is resisted damage. We can live that fairly comfortably, and I should be able to make it to an Earthquake before they get to Thunder Punch number 2. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to be able to grab that first shield from my opponent, and that should put us in a pretty good spot. I actually make it to a Night Slash as well, so this will do a little bit of solid chip. Not that we really need it, because all we need to do is make sure that one Hydro Cannon does pick up the knockout. The opponent is not at the back-to-back moves, so I will put up a shield, and then I will look to connect with a charge move. The opponent tries to go for a catch, but instead they only end up catching a Drill Peck onto their Guzzlord. I am going to look for a full Metal Sound farm down here. Can I get it? No, I cannot. So I'm actually going to put up a shield and to ensure I leave with a lot of energy to threaten that Typhlosion. Looking for that full Metal Sound farm down, and we do exactly get it. Back in comes the Typhlosion. Typhlosion will be hit with a Hydro Cannon here, and if the opponent decides to put up a shield, I can just throw another Hydro Cannon, or I can bank that charge move and catch the Thunder Punch onto the GOURGEIST where it is resisted. Thunder Punch will connect, but guess what? Because we catch, we snuck an Incinerate as well. That allows us to outpace to the Seed Bomb, and Seed Bomb, even though it is resisted, it picks up the knockout on the Glassy Typhlosion, and in the back is a Skeleturge from my opponent. They will have to throw on the CMB tie, but actually it looks like my opponent might have been one turn behind there. That allows us to get to the Shadow Ball, and now we just have to watch for them to throw the Incinerate, and we can combo with the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon will easily be enough to knock out the Skeleturge, and we are able to take that win. Into the next matchup, we've got Empoleon into a non-Shadow Scizor, but it is the Shiny Scizor, so a pretty cool flex from my opponent. With that said, their Bullet Punches are double resisted in this matchup, so they have virtually no fast move pressure, and because we get to these harder hitting charge moves a lot quicker, the opponent has a very negative matchup here. They can look to boost their attack with the Trailblaze, or if they want to pace the exact same, they can just go for a Night Slash. But as you'll notice, without the boost, or even with the boost, 2 Night Slashes are not enough to knock out. So I'm going to let that second one go. I'm going to overfarm quite a bit, and then look to connect with a Hydro Cannon to pick up the knockout. Now, you could say that I should go for a Drill Peck here in this matchup, because the opponent is likely to catch on a Water type in the back. However, the opponent is just going to let me get a full resisted Metal Sound farm down and come out with back-to-back charge moves. In the back is a Como-O, and unfortunately I undertap the wrong move. Fortunately for me, they are on Poison Jab, so Poison Jab is double resisted. That allows me to get to another charge move, and Drill Peck number 2 actually will grab the final shield from my opponent. I'm able to make it to another Drill Peck because they're on Poison Jab, and that will allow me to do some pretty huge damage to the Como-O. They end up getting that farm down, but that is okay, because now in comes Gliscor. I was looking to snipe, but the opponent has an Aurorus in the back, and I have a double weakness to ice, so this could get tricky. Fortunately for me, GOURGEIST does have super effective Seed Bombs, and Incinerate is neutral, so this matchup is okay, but it's not fantastic. They will be able to outpace me as well, so I'm going to have to be putting up a shield here if I want to get rid of this Aurorus, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Aurorus will go down to this Seed Bomb here as I undertap the charge move, and then it's a race Gliscor versus their 1 HP Como. We get the Fury Cutter farm down before they can get off their charge move, so we are able to take that win. Jellicent on the lead in the next match. Honestly, this is probably where we want to see it. GOURGEIST would have an okay matchup there, but it would be a little bit uncomfortable because Incinerate is resisted, while the opponent is hitting for super effective damage with Hex and Shadow Ball. I am just going to stay in this matchup, and that does force the opponent to go straight Shadow Ball, as that is neutral damage and Surf is resisted, and 2 Shadow Balls are enough to knock out. So this is a little bit awkward. Perhaps I can catch a Shadow Ball onto my Gliscor and then outpace the opponent to a Night Slash. The opponent is just going to go for a charge move right away. I'm at this point just going to let this go. Surf does pick up the knockout, and now I have a decision to make. Do I come in with the Gliscor or do I come in with the GOURGEIST? I decided to come in with the Gliscor. Gliscor, of course, will be outpaced to 1 charge move here, so I am going to put up a shield. Surf would hit for pretty massive super effective damage, and now I can look to overfarm in this matchup. The opponent safe switches into a Cradily, but Cradily is not an answer to a Gliscor up energy, as Fury Cutters are hitting for super effective damage. We make it to the Earthquake as well. That does big damage, and now I'm going to let the opponent connect with a Rock Tomb and then pivot into my GOURGEIST to reset that debuff instantly. That's exactly what I'm going to do. In comes GOURGEIST. GOURGEIST looking for that Seed Bomb, and we are going to get it right before they make it to Rock Tomb number 2. Is the opponent going to put up a shield, or do they let their Cradily go down? They actually are going to put up a shield, and that is a little bit uncomfortable for me, but I do have to save shields for that Jellicent in case they do make another charge move. Rock Tomb really doesn't do all that much damage, and in the back my opponent has an XL Morpeko. That is truly incredible, a very cool pick from my opponent. Seed Bomb connects. It does about 50% of the opponent's HP, and I know that an Aura Wheel is resisted here, so I will let it go. GOURGEIST hangs on, and now in comes the Gliscor here. Gliscor just going to settle for a Night Slash. This is resisted damage, but the opponent cannot afford to take any energy, and look at that damage. Night Slash picks up the knockout. Back in comes Jellicent, but Jellicent will be outpaced. We make it to Night Slash number 2. Night Slash grabs the final shield from my opponent, which means this game is over. The opponent is forced to throw energy, but I will make it to a Night Slash because we do have that shield, and we are going to win CMP in this matchup. The opponent goes for a catch onto their Cradily. I look for the full farm down. I don't get it, but all that does is set up a farm down for the GOURGEIST, which already has a charge move loaded, but now we leave with a Shadow Ball loaded, and Shadow Ball from this range, its massive super effective damage will be massive overkill on the Jellicent, and we are able to take that win. Into the next matchup, we've got Empoleon into Toucannon. So this is a great lead, as Toucannon is completely walled in this matchup, and the opponent is staying in. So something is clearly wrong with my opponent's team. They go for a catch onto the Belly Bolt, but they are unsuccessful, and now out comes Gliscor. Gliscor, of course, going to resist both Parabolic Charge and Zap Cannon, able to make it to the Earthquake. Earthquake will hit for massive super effective damage. The opponent lets that go. All that energy is lost, and now back in comes Toucannon. But Toucannon is going to look to throw their energy right away, and that is fantastic. That Beak Blast does huge damage to the Gliscor, but it's not enough to knock out. I'm able to make it to a Night Slash. Night Slash does chip them nearly into the yellow health range, and now out comes a Zygarde in the back. So I just have to come in with my GOURGEIST here, because obviously I need my Empoleon on that Toucannon. I cannot afford to have my GOURGEIST where it is completely walled, so I am just going to put it in a matchup where it doesn't have a great matchup either way. So I can go for straight Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball is the better damage per energy move. We do have 2 shields left in play. I'm actually going to let this go and trust in Empoleon to win me this game. They do go for the crunch. It's still not enough to knock out. That is super effective damage, but it is from a Zygarde, so it doesn't hit very hard. GOURGEIST also has pretty nice bulk. Back in comes the Empoleon. Empoleon looking for a full Metal Sound farm down to come out absolutely loaded with energy. They do make it to another crunch. That's okay. Back in comes the Toucannon, but Toucannon will be hit by an onslaught of Hydro Cannons. Here comes Hydro Cannon number 1, and I'm 2 or 3 off Hydro Cannon number 2 and 3. They will play to a CMP tie, but I know this is resisted damage, so I can let this go in case the Zygarde is able to make it to another charge move. And now here comes Hydro Cannon number 2. The opponent will respect it with a shield, but I'm already at Hydro Cannon number 3, and Hydro Cannon number 3 should be enough to knock out the Toucannon. And now it's a race fast move Metal Sound versus Dragon Tail. The opponent looking for the farm down. They actually end up getting to a charge move here, which is why I did preserve my shield. It is the crunch. Thank goodness we had that shield. We get the Metal Sound farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, picking up a fantastic lead. We've got Empoleon into the Clefable. They're going to safe switch into a Moltres, and my opponent is completely walled. However, this puts me in a very precarious situation, as both of my back two Pokemon have very negative matchups into the Moltres, so I'm forced to just stay in here. Now, of course, if they are running Payback, it will hit for massive neutral damage. The opponent just goes for the resisted fly, and now I can look to overfarm in this matchup and connect with a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon from this range should be enough to pick up the knockout, and then I just have to hope, oh no, the opponent is actually going to put up a shield, so I'm going to match shields here. The opponent can double shield and look for switch to get a full farm down, but they're going to have to give up both shields, and honestly, giving up both shields is totally fine by me because I have a Shadow Ball and an Earthquake user in the back. The opponent is going to look for that full farm down. Now out comes Gliscor. Gliscor going to look for a neutral Fury Cutter farm down. Unfortunately, the opponent will make it to a Brave Bird at the last second, but I have to let this go. I need to save shields. But Brave Bird actually doesn't do as much damage as you might expect, and now I'm going to instantly reset onto my GOURGEIST. In the back for my opponent is a Nidoqueen, but Nidoqueen only going to look to connect with a Poison Fang here. This is only neutral damage, so I will just let this go, as this is going to, of course, lower my defense, but when their fast move is resisted, it really doesn't do all that much for me, for my opponent. I can go for Shadow Ball number 1. I'm looking for a Seed Bomb now to pick up the knockout before they can make it to another Poison Fang. This will preserve a little bit of energy on the GOURGEIST, and now back in comes the Clefable. Clefable will have to throw a Meteor Mash here in order to pick up the knockout, but they overfarm like massive, allowing me to get to yet another Shadow Ball. That does big damage to the opponent. Can I make it to a Seed Bomb? The answer is no, not before the opponent throws their charge move, but I think I can outpace the opponent, so I'm going to just under tap the move. Seed Bomb from this range. Is it enough to knock out the Clefable in the Ultra League? Yes, it is. Oh no, it isn't. They live on 1 HP, but that should put them into a range where a Fury Cutter does knock out. So Meteor Mash does pick up the knockout. In comes the Gliscor. We get that Fury Cutter farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got a bit of a tricky lead. We've got Empoleon into Corviknight. So I'm just going to stay in this matchup. Of course, the opponent can't go for Air Cutters in this matchup. However, Sand Attack is super effective, and Payback would hit for massive neutral damage. But I can outpace the opponent. So I can make it to 2 Hydro Cannons before the opponent can make it to 2 Paybacks. They will, of course, be full sending that Payback here. No, they end up going for an Air Cutter bait before pivoting into a Guzzlord. My opponent is incredibly weak to the Empoleon, I guess, if they're coming in with a Guzzlord here. But I'm going to chip with a Fury Cutter, with a Drill Peck, and then come in with my Gliscor, where I can hit for super effective damage with Fury Cutter. The opponent will connect with a Dragon Claw here. Unfortunately for me, I have to full send Earthquakes to do any meaningful damage, as Night Slash is resisted. So I'm going to be full sending this Earthquake here. The opponent does end up letting that go. If the opponent comes back in with the Corviknight, if I can make it to a Night Slash here, I will be able to put them into a range where a Hydro Cannon does knock out, and that is exactly what I need. However, it also might set up a farm down for their GOURGEIST later on. So here comes Night Slash number 1. The opponent just goes for the Air Cutter, so we do hang on. I'm going to look for a Night Slash number 2 unless the opponent throws another Air Cutter, and that is fine by me because now they should be nearly energy dry. Air Cutter does pick up the knockout after one more Sand Attack, and now in comes Empoleon. Empoleon able to outpace the opponent, make it to a Hydro Cannon. If the opponent puts up a shield, I'm likely to pivot instantly into my GOURGEIST, and that's exactly what's going to happen. In comes the GOURGEIST. I know I can live in an Air Cutter here, and I don't even farm up to the Payback, so I will just let this go. Air Cutter does very little damage, and in the back for my opponent is a Dragon Breath Giratina. So Giratina will look to connect with either an Ancient Power or a Shadow Sneak here. It is going to be that Ancient Power. Actually, Shadow Sneak is more energy this season, so that could only be an Ancient Power. But now I'm at the back-to-back Shadow Balls. Shadow Ball number 1 will get shielded up by my opponent. Here comes Shadow Ball number 2. This is super effective damage, but we all know that Giratina is immensely bulky. So back in comes the Empoleon. We know the opponent is likely completely walled here, both Ancient Power and Dragon Breath. The opponent goes for the Ancient Power. I'm watching for the catch. The opponent goes for the catch of the Drill Peck onto their Corviknight, but they do not get it. I hold on to my energy. I make it to the Hydro Cannon. It picks up the knockout on the Corviknight there, and now I'm able to outpace the opponent as well. Make it to the Drill Peck, and Drill Peck from this range picks the knockout on the Giratina, and we are able to take that win. Into the next matchup, we've got another Clefable on the lead, so another fantastic lead for the Empoleon. The opponent is going to safe switch into a Steelix, and now out comes GOURGEIST. GOURGEIST, of course, resisting the Thunder Fangs, resisting a potential Earthquake as well, but of course this opponent is on Crunch, so Crunch does hit for super effective damage. It also lowers my defense, which means another Crunch will be enough to knock out. I will go for the Shadow Ball. Shadow connects, it does big damage, and one more Incinerate allows me to get to the Seed Bomb. I'm hopeful that this Seed Bomb should be enough to knock out the Steelix, but the opponent just ends up putting up a shield, and that is okay by me because I'm willing to shield right back. And even if the opponent goes for a bait here, they won't be able to outpace. They do end up full setting the Crunch, which means I can just look for a full Incinerate farm down, leaving with absolutely loaded with energy. And now back in comes Clefable. Clefable will be smacked with a Shadow Ball, and if they don't throw their energy right away, I'm going to make it to Shadow Ball number 2, so the opponent is forced to throw. We've already chipped them deep into the yellow. And now Empoleon looks like it's going to be in a fantastic position. In the back for my opponent is a Corviknight, so out comes Gliscor. Of course, we do double resist the sand attacks in this matchup, and we can make it to these Night Slashes very quickly. I have to hope that I do get a boost out of one of these Night Slashes, though, because these Night Slashes are doing very little damage, and I really would like to grab a shield in this matchup if I can. The opponent does end up full sending that payback there. It does big damage to the Gliscor, but it's not enough to two-shot, and that is important, because even if they go for another payback here, I know I can let this go after a little bit of lag there, and I know I can hang on, so I will just let it go. They do full send that payback. Back in comes the Clefable, but all that does is set up a perfect farm down for the Empoleon. I'm looking to come out of this matchup absolutely loaded on energy to threaten that Corviknight. They end up full sending the Moonblast there. They don't get the debuff. I leave with 100 energy, so the opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, picking up a very tricky lead, we've got Empoleon into Registeel. They have both electric and fighting coverage, which is super effective into both, both of those are super effective into Empoleon, but I have 2 responses in the back that resist both, so that is very important there. I end up luring out a Greninja as I safe switch into my Gliscor. And that is great because Gliscor hits for massive super effective damage with the Fury Cutters. We put them at half HP with the Fury Cutters alone, and I grab a shield in that mid game, which is fantastic for me. Back in comes the Empoleon. Empoleon will be hit with back-to-back Night Slashes, but that is okay because we can live these fairly comfortably. And if the opponent wants to come back with the Registeel, they're going to end up being completely walled. So I bank loads of energy, and now in comes GOURGEIST. GOURGEIST is a complete wall to energy from my opponent. The opponent ends up going for a Zap Cannon there, maybe fishing for the debuff, but they do not get it. Incinerates are hitting for super effective damage, and these Shadow Balls will start to add up. So here comes Shadow Ball number 1. It puts the opponent into the yellow health range. The only problem here is I don't think I can get a full Incinerate farm down before the opponent makes it to another charge move. So I'm hopeful that my opponent either pivots out of this matchup, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They come in with a Talonflame in the back, but Talonflame will be chipped with a Shadow Ball just to burn that switch timer. I end up staying in this matchup, which is definitely a misplay, as I should just, there's no reason to not pivot there. However, I have so much energy on the Empoleon that I can put up a shield. I'm going to throw one end the move here in case they decide to let this go so that Incinerate does not register. The opponent is actually going to let that go, and that is absolutely huge because I should be able to outpace the Registeel. So it's all about that Greninja. Back in comes Greninja. I'm able to outpace the Greninja as well, make it to the Drill Peck. Drill Peck actually grabs a shield from my opponent, so I will be forced to commit a shield right back. I know I should be able to outpace the Registeel, so I just have to basically watch for a catch here. The opponent unable to get that catch. Here comes another Drill Peck. Drill Peck will be enough to knock out the Greninja, and now it's a race to the charge move. Hydro Cannon versus Focus Blast. The opponent will get outpaced. Metal Sound just does have that nice placing in that damage. The opponent will go down there, and we are able to take that win. Into, I believe, the final match of the video, picking up a bit of a neutral lead. We've got Empoleon into Shadow Feraligatr. Now, the reason this is neutral, even though the opponent is likely completely walled with both Hydro Cannon and Ice Beam, is because my Metal Sounds are resisted and their Shadow Claws are neutral. So it kind of nets a neutral matchup there, even though I do have neutral charge moves. The opponent is going to let that go. They're not going to play to the CMP tie, but I'm pretty confident that Empoleon will win that CMP tie there. So I am just going to be throwing right away as soon as I get to it. And you'll notice the opponent does have more health than me. And that is just purely because of that fast move pressure from the Feraligatr. They end up playing to a CMP tie that they do not win. Here comes a Drill Peck. Drill Peck will actually grab a shield from the opponent and put them into the red. So at this point, I will just let the Empoleon go down. It has done its job. It's grabbed 2 shields in that mid game. I'm going to look for a farm down there. I can't quite get it, so I am just going to go for a Night Slash. Night Slash will be enough to pick up the knockout on the Feraligatr. And what is that Pokemon in the back? It is a Zygarde. So this is honestly where we'd rather see it, as Incinerate is resisted on the Gourgeist, and Crunch would hit for super effective damage. So I'm just going to stay in this matchup. I'm just hopeful that whatever is in back is just weak to the either flying or grass typing of the Gourgeist, or maybe it's a fighter. Like any of those things would be fine. If it's a fighter, electric, a ground, we should be in a pretty good position. The fact that they came with Zygarde here makes me wonder if this is a Gashron in the back, but no, it is a Corviknight. But guess what, Corviknight? Guess who has Incinerate this season? It is Gourgeist. Gourgeist, of course, doing massive damage with a fast move. They full send a payback there. It does big, super effective damage. I am able to make it to a Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball will hit for large neutral damage as well. It puts them into the red health range. I'm unable to get to another charge move before the opponent fires off the Air Cutter, but we know we can live in Air Cutter here, so I will just end up letting that go. We end up getting the full Incinerate farm down, leaving with a Shadow Ball loaded for the Zygarde. This will do pretty good chip to the Zygarde, but Zygarde will be able to hang on as it is very bulky. But backing comes Gliscor. Gliscor had the Earthquake loaded. This is massive overkill on the Zygarde, but it does end up picking up the knockout, and we are able to take that win. So yeah, that is XXL XL Incinerate Gourgeist in the Ultra League. This Pokemon was a lot of fun to run, and it was actually surprisingly strong into some top meta staples such as Gashron and Corviknight. It kind of breaks that core, which I really like, because I did see that core quite a bit. Of course, I will say Gliscor is definitely not the play for this meta, even though you saw a lot of success on screen today. Getting Gliscor to work was kind of a pain, just because, like, what is it, 9 out of the top 10 ranked Pokemon are water types in the Ultra League right now, so Gliscor just doesn't have the play that it used to. That said, it did just work well for this team because it covered the lead's weaknesses very well. And it was able to bait out ice types in case you could use Gourgeist, I guess, to bait out ice types, but you kind of get the picture. But yeah, that's gonna be it from me from this video. I do want to say thank you to the expert training members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Mustache, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Chompus Clips, Sons of Code, Soma Patil, Immortal Bart, and Pokemonty16, as well as an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Bitten, Musaju, Speedster, Fast Eddie Boss, CD Slaska, Star Bonsai, and Eliana. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.